All right. Looks like we are live. All right. So let's get disclaimers out of the way first. We'll jump right into it. This is, here, let's adjust the camera just a little bit. I feel like it's cutting my head off here. Top of my head. You don't need to see the top of my head anyway, but that's okay. So the disclaimers, this is a weekly live broadcast. This is pretty much every Thursday evening, 7 o'clock Central. This is where I am, and you can come in here. You can ask the questions you haven't been able to get answered because I haven't been good at responding to comments. We could talk about whatever you want to talk about. It does not matter to me. I don't have anything planned out. We'll talk about anything. I'll give my opinion. And the only things I ask is really just be polite, be family friendly. Don't be hateful with anybody. Don't, start calling anybody names. We can have differences of opinions. We can still be friends. We can have good, friendly debates. Just be polite, be friendly about it. What's my dog doing over there? Making noises. But anyway, sorry, got distracted there. So that's pretty much it. That's the rules. Just like I said, don't start cussing anybody. Don't start calling anybody names. Don't be hateful with anybody, anything like that. Other than that, it's pretty much all free games. So let's jump into it. We got Homestead Matters here, says happy Friday Eve to everyone. Hope everyone is well and feeling like this is the best weekend in a while. In a lot of ways it is, isn't it? Hey, Jacob LaFave, I think it is. Maybe I pronounced that wrong. Says hello to everybody. Hello to you too. One Jump Bob says Mississippi Gulf Coast checking in. Awesome. Glad to have you here. Teresa, good to see you. Roy from Texas, good to see you. And Chester Hickman, good evening. Good evening to you. Teresa wants to know how is everybody? How's everyone is what it says. But actually, I'm doing well. A little tired today for some reason. No reason. I mean, I slept pretty well last night, but just feel a little tired. Had to work today. Had a pretty complex thing I had to figure out. I did eventually get it, but I think that just wiped me out. I spent most of the day trying to figure it out. George Kaiser says, hello, everyone. Well done. Well done, the U.S. Good news this week from you. Yeah, absolutely. I forget where are you in the UK, George? Is that right? I can't remember. Teresa says, I've had a stomach bug the last few days. I'm sorry to hear that. That's unusual. I always say the only good thing about stomach bugs, they usually don't last very long. But you're saying the last few days, that's actually longer than most of them seem to last. So I am sorry to hear that. Hopefully you are over it. We got So and Tear from Douglas County, Oregon is here. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Chester wants to know, how are the baby rabbits? Well, they're doing fine, I assume. I actually haven't checked on them in the last day or two. But yeah, they should be fine. I mean, I've looked enough to see that there's movement going on there, so they're still alive. They're doing okay. So I mean, there's really usually not much to worry about once they're born. I mean, they're usually just fine. She's a good mother, so I don't worry about them too much. I do need to get in and check on them and make sure though. Jacob says, I just missed my Shire sale on Celadon eggs. Unfortunately, the email got sent to spam. Oh no. Yeah, I got the email too. I don't really care that much about Celadon egg layers or anything like that. But, hey, if that's what you're looking for, that was a great time to get them. Outside Dog says, hello from Granite City, Illinois. Good to see you. Georgia's in Australia. That's right. I knew that. I've forgotten. Yep, it was good news here I don't know if everybody in the chat feels like good news, but it was good news for me. I was certainly happy to see it. Hey, there's 340 Quail Farm. Good to see you. Says, hey, everyone, Mount Dora, Florida, checking in. Teresa says, my first ever hatch was a 0% rate. I got more eggs in there now, over 50. Hopefully they do well. Let's see, you're in West Virginia. And Teresa says, yes, good news. Yeah, absolutely. So, well, hopefully you get a better hatch. You said a 0% hatch rate. So your first set of eggs you set, not one of them hatched. Have you calibrated your incubator? Hopefully, throw a couple of throw a couple of calibrated thermometers in there, preferably before you set eggs, but you've already set eggs, and make sure that your incubator is actually reading temperature correctly, because that's quite often the issue when you have poor hatch rates like that. But hopefully you got it figured out and you have a better hatch. Roy wants to know, what kind of rabbits do you have again? Let's see, I have 2 silver foxes, a buck and a doe, and I have 2 tamucks, which are basically a New Zealand white, a buck and a doe. The one that I had bred, or the one I bred that I had rabbits from the other day, that's my silver fox. Let's see, Joe Sandy says, hey, everybody. Sandy from Southeast Michigan. Good to see you. Andy says, hey, everyone from Southwest Michigan. Again, I love that. Southwest and Southeast Michigan here. Says, hey, Chris, what do you think of them? Wait, how you with that damn old tree? Okay, so hard for me to read. You want to know, basically, it was difficult for me to make out for some reason. You want to know what's going on with the tree, right? Well, not a whole lot, actually. I mean, I got it down on the ground. You probably saw that's why you're asking. So it's all down. I don't have to worry about it falling on the neighbor's property or anything like that. But I haven't done a whole lot other than just 2 weeks of bundled up brush taken out to the curb for the trashmen to pick up. So a little bit of work on it, but not much. I'll get to it. I don't have to hurry now. It's down on the ground. It's starting to cool off, so it's getting closer to like chainsaw weather, but it's also hunting season. So, gotta work in the hunting when I can. Jacob says, yes, very good news. I agree. Verna says, thumbs up, everyone. 30 plus watching and only 9 likes. Oh, yeah, well, we got 11 now. But still, you're right. Yeah, not everybody has liked it yet. George says, new batch of quail hatching was weird again. Chris, I have one hatching with a big lump near its vent. It's 3 days old now and putting on weight, but not sure what this is. Never seen it before. Yeah, that sounds odd, or that seems odd with newly hatched chicks. I mean, if it was an older bird, I'd say it might be prolapse or something, but I don't know, honestly, what to tell you on that one. I mean, if it's getting around okay, I mean, you might just give it some time to see how it does. Teresa says, all the govies were calibrated. The eggs were dirty and cracked, but I gave it a go anyway. Just didn't work. These eggs look much better. Okay, well, hopefully that was all it was then. Yeah, it sounds like you got that kind of figured out. So, yeah, I'm confident you're going to have a better hatch rate this week or this time around. So good luck with that. Hope it goes well. One Jump Bob says, new to rabbits. I got a trio of Tamuks 20 weeks old and acquired a 2-year-old that has not even been bred. When would you recommend the buck would be ready with the 2-year-old virgin? Okay, so 2-year-old rabbit, I will give you I mean, it may be difficult to get her bred if she's 2 years old and hasn't been bred yet. You may have some hard times with that. But with that being said, generally you want to wait till the buck's at least 6 months old. So let's see, 20 weeks, that's what, 4 months old, right? 5 months old, sorry. Do my math right a little bit better. 5 months old, so give them another month. And then you can go ahead and try at that point. Let's see. We've got a bunch of people talking to each other. I'll let them. Let's see. Jennifer says, good evening, Chris. When do you put the nesting box in with the rabbit? Also, what do you put in the nesting box? Thanks in advance. Actually, the video from Monday, I pretty much went through that. You can go watch that if you want to for a little bit more. I don't know if it's more in-depth explanation, but I'll give you a rundown here. So about 5 days before they're due, so day 25-ish roughly, I take a big handful of straw and I throw it in the cage. And if they start displaying the nesting behavior, which is hay stashing, basically, instead of like just nibbling on the straw, if they're like gathering it up in their mouth and she's got it, kind of hanging out both sides of her mouth, it's pretty obvious what I'm talking about. Then I just go ahead and put the nesting box in there. Now, if she just starts nibbling on the hay, well, I just do the same thing the next day, throw a handful of straw in, see if she's displaying the nesting behavior. When she starts displaying that nesting behavior, I go ahead and I put the nest box in. I usually line mine. I use wire nest boxes, and I line them with cardboard on the bottoms, a little bit up the sides, and then I stuff it with straw, about as much straw as I can get in there, and just put it in there for her. So hopefully that kind of answers the question for you. David Lister says 12 likes. Thank you very much. 12 likes. 18 now. Well, thank you, though, for the likes. I appreciate that. 340 Quail Farm says, what are your thoughts on medicated starter feed? Is it not recommended, and why? Medicated's okay. I mean, I prefer to not use medicated feed. I use regular starter feed. I got to clean my glasses off here. I'm having a hard time seeing through them. But I use a non-medicated feed when I can. But if you have to get a medicated feed, it's okay. When they say medicated feed, it's not actually like medicated, like what you might think of as what medicated is. Really, what is a medicated feed is a thiamine blocker, and it's to help with coccidiosis, to prevent that. I would try to move them off of that and get them onto a regular feed if you can. But if that's all you got, it's really not that big of a deal. I wouldn't worry about it too much at all. FDA says it's fine to eat the eggs and the meat from birds that are fed medicated feed. I kind of believe that, honestly, but still, I'm better safe than sorry. I like to use non-medicated. So Tara says 340 Quail Farm, how did you do with the hurricane? Good question. I think we asked that already, and it seems like you said you were doing okay with it, but hopefully. Verna's saying to George that if you already have a genetic problem, you should have put in new blood. Could be. I don't know if I'd worry about that too much with just one bird. If you start seeing frequent issues, then yeah, definitely. But I don't know. I'd worry about that too much. Guadalupe says, hello, Chris. I wanted to ask, how do you know that your rabbits are done breeding with buck and doe? So I'm not sure. Do you mean like, how do I know when they're done breeding? Like when I go to breed them, how do I know when they're finished? Or do you mean like, how do I know when they're too old and like just not going to produce anymore, so I have to get new rabbits? I can answer both of those questions, honestly. The first part of that would be like when I take the doe to the buck, I usually try to let them get 2 fall-offs, and then I remove her from the cage. They're done. Or if the doe starts really acting aggressive towards the buck, then a lot of times I'll go ahead and move her out, because sometimes the does just aren't ready to be bred. They don't want to be, and they get real aggressive with the bucks, and I don't want them to start fighting and have issues. The other part of that question, or the other way I could take that question, would be usually what I do is I look to replace my does whenever they start having like super small litters, or like it's a proven doe that's been pretty consistent, and then all of a sudden they start having really small litters, or maybe miscarriages like two times in a row or something like that. And if they're around 5 years old, 4 to 5 years old, somewhere right around in there, and that's happening, well, then I know it's probably time to go ahead and replace the doe. And then the bucks, most of the time it's 5, 6 years, somewhere right around in there. I decide it's probably go ahead and time to replace them. George says, is it genetics though, Verna? It's only second generation birds, or is it something else, environmental, etc.? I don't know. I mean, we'll see what Verna says. Verna says, George, it depends on what is happening with the birds. Since I haven't seen them, I only took your word. Well, again, I don't know that I'd worry about it too much if you're talking about just one bird. I mean, who knows? There could be any number of things that happened. It could be a genetic issue with one bird. It could be some kind of environmental issue. I can't think of any environmental issue that would have caused that. So I just wouldn't worry about it too much. And unless you start getting like frequent issues, I don't think I'd worry about it at all. Let's see. So George is saying, understand, Verna, just weird that my egg laying has dropped off and a couple of birds in each hutch are defected now. What does that mean by defected exactly? And how old I don't know how old your birds are. I think it's going into summertime there, so your days should be getting longer, so it shouldn't be probably a light issue that would be causing them to drop off the egg production. They could be molting. They're sometimes birds just, for some reason, they just shut down for a little bit and then pick back up. So you may see that kind of happen from time to time, especially if your birds are over, maybe like going on 2 years old, something like that. Spreaderiva says, hello, everyone. At how many weeks can you determine the sex of your quail? Well, it depends on what kind of quail they are. If you're looking at jumbo pharaohs that can be feather sexed, 2 weeks old, roughly, a little bit over, when they feather out, you can usually tell at that point which ones are roosters and which ones are hens pretty consistently. It's not too hard. If you're looking at birds that are like you got all white birds, or some of them that you cannot just feather sex, then you're gonna have to wait till they hit sexual maturity. You're gonna have to wait, that's 8 weeks roughly, and assuming that you've got enough light that the roosters start crowing, the hens start laying eggs, and at that point you'll have to vent sex them and see if they're male or female. Hopefully that answered your question. George Kaiser says it depends on he's talking about answering the same question I did, but yeah, you're right. Depends on the breed. Some have chest spotting. Others you have to wait till vent sex them. I agree. Verna's got the same answer, basically. 340 Quail says, fared well with the hurricane. Birds got stressed and stopped laying for about a week, but no major damage. Thank God. Amen. Let's see. Kaiser says, Verna, low fertility, 60% of eggs, low hatch rate, 50%. Couple have wry neck and splayed legs, etc. You have wry neck and splayed legs in your older birds, your adult birds that are have been laying and then they've developed splayed legs or wry neck. Is that what you're saying, George? If that's the case, then it sounds like you've got some kind of nutritional deficiency that would probably be it'd be thiamine or vitamin E. So, I mean, those are the two things that usually attribute to that. So look at what you're feeding them. It may be some kind of vitamin deficiency in that. You may need to supplement it if it's older birds that are doing that. Let's see. Teresa says, do you need a building license for an outdoor quail cage? I don't. I don't. I don't know what your area is like. I can't imagine you would need one for a quail hutch. I mean, that seems a little ridiculous. If I lived in a place that would require a building license for that, I think I'd move. But that's just me. You're going to have to check what your local regulations are. I don't know. And if honestly, I don't even know that I'd worry about it. I'd just build it. What are they going to do? I mean, but that's just me. I mean, as long as you're not building one that's like the size of a house, I mean, nobody's going to come by and check a permit for a cage. I mean, I just can't imagine that happening. Joe Sandy says, I highly doubt it. Yeah, I highly doubt it too. George says, I didn't realize you had a YouTube channel with a subscriber base, Verna. I watched a couple of your videos and left a like. Well, awesome. Yeah, Verna does have a YouTube channel. Go check it out. Let's see. Verna says, splayed legs are environmental, low fertility and hatch rates. Do they have enough lighting? Also, what is your hen to roo ratio? Splayed legs, I mean, they can be environmental, but they're most likely vitamin deficiencies. So, I mean, nutritional issues that would be causing that. And also, I mean, just because you're getting low hatch rates doesn't necessarily mean you've got low fertility. I'm guessing you check fertility because you listed that separately as, your low hatch rate. But yeah, it could be, I mean, are your birds older? I mean, there's a lot of different things that could be going there. So let's see what you're saying here. George says, yeah, 14 hours plus of light. At the moment, the ratio is 4-to-1 or 5-to-1, depending on the coop. Chris is right. Might be nutritional deficiencies. That would be my guess if you've got both of those issues combined, because you've got the right ratios, you've got the right light. As long as your birds aren't that old, and when I say old, I mean like, two-ish years old, that might start affecting your fertility and things like that, but everything sounds right. So I would look at your nutritional, like, what are you feeding them? Is there some kind of nutritional deficiency? The Desert Homestead says, finally cooled down here in Phoenix, already bred 2 does and 2 to go. I need to build a quail hutch and get quail before summer. I am more than confident thanks to you. Thanks, Chris. Well, you're absolutely welcome. Glad to hear things have cooled off. They cooled off here, too. We had a couple of really cool days. Jacob says, my celadons from QuailCon just started laying this week, but only 2. I swear if out of 18 chicks, only 2 are hens, I will cry. Well, that would be unusual, that's for sure. Verna says, you can cook lentils and rice together, let it cool, and give them a bit with their food for a couple of weeks and see if it helps. I've had success with that. Interesting. David says, lots of rain here in the lake Monday through Wednesday this week. More forecasted tonight and tomorrow, and the lake is full. Yeah, we're getting all that rain too. I mean, it's coming, hits you, and then it comes our way. And we had quite a bit of rain. Had some flood warnings going on. Nothing really bad around here. Moved us from severe drought, or from extreme drought to severe drought, I guess, or something like that. Anyway, brought our drought level down 1 notch, whatever it was. It was in like extreme, and now it's severe or something like that. We had a lot of it. And we got more coming. Ours is Friday night into Saturday morning. So it's the same storm system that's hitting you. It's coming our way. New Mexico's getting snow. Really crazy. Joe Sandy says, I removed my automatic waterer for the quail for the winter. Not looking forward to frozen water. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, if you have power, you invest in one of those heated waterers. They work pretty well. There's one in my Amazon shop that I use, and it works great. Homestead Matters says, Jacob, I feel your pain. Last hatch out of 20 birds, only 4 females. Not complaining. This helped the freezer stock, but yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, that's usually how it goes, isn't it? You get more roosters than hens, way more. I don't know why. Rusty Rick says, question on quail for colder weather. How old would you say would be okay to move them outside? Pretty young. I mean, when you say colder weather, how cold are we talking about? I moved, like I've got my 2-week-old birds that are in the brooder box right now, acclimated down to about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. The last batch I moved outside at about 2 weeks. And then they were outside for 3 days, I think it was, and we got a cold night, 39 degrees, and they were fine. I didn't lose any of them. So, 2.5 weeks roughly, but it also depends a little bit on how aggressive you are with acclimating them to lower temperatures and how cold we're talking. It was 39 that night, but it didn't stay 39 degrees. It got up to like 60 that day. So hopefully that answers your question. Spider Eva says, what's your opinion on having the quails in a hutch at ground level to let them walk on grass? I mean, fine, do it. I don't see any reason why not to. Maybe a little bit tricky. You're going to have to make sure your cage is pretty well built to keep predators out, because everything will want to eat your quail. But if you have that, then go for it. Also, you're probably going to have to move it pretty frequently, or have a great big area for them, because they're gonna mess it up, if you know what I mean, pretty quickly. So that's the only things that I would be concerned about. Verna says it's always a risk with eggs. Oh, talking about too many roosters? Indeed. Teresa says, which type of Coturnix are the calmest? Well, in my opinion, Verna says, Teresa, any that you handle a lot. My experience, it's been the jumbo pharaohs. I've had way less issues with aggression. I'm sometimes, like, because I don't handle them a lot, they get a little jumpy when I get around the hutch, but I hardly ever have issues with them fighting with each other and picking on each other. And they're just way calmer than the other kinds of birds that I've kept. But that's just my experience. Let's see. Keone says, stretching rabbit hides as I listen to your live broadcast. Great info and conversation for such a task. Well, there you go. I've actually never tanned rabbit hides. I'm assuming that's what you're doing. I've never done it before. I just haven't. Maybe something I've thought about it from time to time, but just never got to it. Oh, no. George says the worst hatch I ever had was 24 males and 1 female. Oh, that is bad. Joe Sandy says quail poop a lot. You'd have to move the hutch frequently. Plus, Chris, wouldn't that open them up to disease, mites, etc.? It could. I mean, it's not necessarily a guarantee. If your animals are in contact with the ground, they do have a higher chance of picking up parasites, fleas, ticks, internal parasites, all those kinds of things. But it's not a guarantee that they're going to get them. Teresa says, I said calmest, least aggressive is what I meant. Verna said to Teresa, if you want them to become friendly, start feeding them treats out of your hand. You have to be patient. Joe Sandy says coccidiosis. Yeah, coccidiosis it's a parasite, actually. It kind of presents as a disease, but it's a parasite. You'll know that you can tell that animals have it when you process them. If they have like white spots on their liver, that's how it kind of presents. But it's basically like a worm in a sense. It infects the liver, causes, especially young animals to, it can cause high mortality in young animals. It's not usually real serious for older animals. They can usually handle it okay. But younger animals, newly hatched chicks, young rabbits, that kind of thing, sometimes have a hard time with that. I've actually never had an issue with it, but it is something you would have to worry about. Homestead Matters says, old farmer's trick, wear the same outfit around them. That startles them less when you go buy them. I have an outside jacket for the quail tent. Interesting. Verna says less aggressive is wilds and Egyptian. I don't have a whole lot of experience with Egyptian, so that may be true. But yeah, the jumbo pharaoh or the wilds, you would sometimes call them, same bird. That's been my experience as being the least aggressive. Joe Sandy says, yeah, I was told that if the quail are in contact with the ground, they have a much higher chance of catching it. Yeah, indeed. I mean, they do absolutely have a much higher chance if they're in contact with the ground. But again, it's not a guarantee. George says, problem is the kids get attached to the quail and they play around with them. Next minute, they're on the dinner plate. They've learned not to hand feed them or get attached. A life lesson, I guess. Yeah, indeed. Desert Homestead said, does coccidiosis affect the eggs, chicken or quail? I don't think so. That's a good question. I don't think you have to worry about that, especially if you're cooking it. You're going to be fine. I don't think there's any impact on. I don't know. That's a good question. Let's see. Let's see. I can't. Okay, that search did not work. Let's take a look here. What do we get here? Coccidiosis damages the gastrointestinal tract. Okay, blah, 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 blah. It's just talking about like signs of it. Reduced egg production during a coccidiosis outbreak. I don't see anything that says don't eat the eggs. It says it's not spread inside the eggs. It could spread through fecal contamination, on the shells themselves, but it's species specific, so you probably don't have to worry about getting it. But yeah, as long as you're cooking, everything should be fine. So Terra says, I don't think any of them are aggressive. Wild type is the calmest, though. Yeah, I had when I had white quail, I had terrible issues with aggression. They beat everybody up, and including themselves. They were terrible about it. But the jumbo wild, the jumbo pharaohs, they seem to be much calmer, much easier to deal with. All right, all of a sudden the chat just stopped. So I got to come up with something to talk about, don't I? I always say this, I should have something planned out, and I never do. But maybe I'll learn from that someday and come up with topics. So what has been going on this week? We had a big election, of course. That's over. So I am very thankful for many reasons. One is that one of the reasons is I'm going to stop getting all the ads and the texts and all that kind of stuff from people trying to get me to vote for them or vote for their cause or whatever. Little disappointed with the way some of the local, like the state elections went. But, pretty happy with the national election. Kay Cameron says, where would be the best place to buy quail in Georgia? Well, I don't know. I'm not from Georgia. I don't live in Georgia, so I don't know exactly if there's any place in Georgia that sells live quail to you. If you have an incubator, if you're looking for eggs, I always recommend My Shire Farm. I think it's a great supplier. You can order eggs from them and they'll ship them to your house. But if you're looking for live birds, I would suggest looking on like Craigslist or something and see if you can find somebody in your area that has them. Because I really don't know, where to recommend like specific to Georgia. I don't know. Verna says, if your quail get it from your chickens, it is a death sentence for the quail. Stronger strain. You're right there, Max. What are you doing? He's digging at the carpet. I think maybe we got a mouse. I don't know. All right, quit doing that. It's a destined sentence for the quail. Stronger strain and their little bodies can handle. Yeah, it could be pretty rough, I imagine. Abbott's Guns and Hobbies says, good evening from Northeast Oklahoma. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. I don't know exactly where in Oklahoma you are, but northeast, that would be probably fairly close to me. Maybe. Homestead Matters says, Gopher Ridge. Is that in Georgia? Is that what you're answering? The place in Georgia to get quail would be Gopher Ridge? I don't know. Maybe. R. Farrell says, I'll be moving my quail from a 2-tier cage to a large single-level cage. Should I be worried about fighting? 16 in total. If you move them all together, probably not. If you've got old birds that you're moving into the cages with them, then yeah, that could cause some issues. Now, do prepare that they'll probably stop laying for about a week or two. I mean, you might get a couple eggs over the next couple of days, but moving them around like that does stress them out a little bit and causes them to stop laying usually. They'll pick back up. Just give them some time. Steve says, at least there is no more political commercials. Indeed. Homestead Matters says, Gopher Ridge is out of Georgia. So there you go. There's a supplier in Georgia. Desert Homestead says, recommendations for ordering quail for first timers, chicks, or eggs. Well, My Shire Farm sells eggs. Great supplier. You can go on their website, place an order. They'll ship it right to your house. As far as live chicks, if you're looking for chicks instead of eggs, again, I would check on Craigslist in your local area and see if you can find somebody locally that's selling them. Or there may be, if you find a supplier, I don't know where you're located, but like if you can find a supplier that's local to you, you might be able to get eggs or chicks from them directly. Kay Cameron says, thank you. Well, you're absolutely welcome. Air Scrap 5000 says, what's up, y'all? Greetings from New York City. Smash the like button. Thank you. Jennifer says, does anybody know how long do I need to feed my red bourbon turkeys game bird starter? I'm not an expert on turkeys, but I would say probably, with chicks, for example, I go through one bag of starter and then I switch them over. So I would assume it'd be about the same, but I really don't know exactly. Scrap 5000 says Trump 2024. No Trump infinity. Abbott's Gun says Wagner about 20 minutes north of Muskogee. Okay, so a little ways from me, not too far. Let's see. Muskogee's about it's probably close to a 4-hour drive roughly, but it's a little ways. Now, Verna placed a link to My Shire Farm there, so those of you guys that are looking for eggs, you can check that out. Sorry, I got dog hair or something in my nose. Scrap 5000 says, thank God we don't ever have to listen to that cackling hyena ever again, except for when she has to validate the election results. That's going to be epic. Yeah. Oh, and there's a link for Guidro's Family Farm. I always forgot about them. Oh, sorry. It's driving me crazy. So yeah, Guidro's Family Farm, that's another good supplier. Jacob says, I'm hoping Zach will be starting the quail egg auction soon. Would definitely like to have fun with that. Yeah, I don't know what his plans are. I haven't talked to him about it. Jeremy says, do you still have meat rabbits? Yeah, I do, actually. I just put a video up Monday. Just had my first litter of the season from my silver fox doe. And then I have 2 Tamuk white, New Zealand white rabbits that I'm working on, waiting for them to grow out just a little bit more before I start breeding them. David says, no fret, Chris. We still have the Medicare supplement insurance calls till next month. Yeah, well, I don't get those calls, but yeah, I get other ones. Oh, and there's another link for Short Pickens Quail Store. So Verna's got all the links. Okay, Homestead Matters says, to scrap, check out the song Lying Kamala by Loza Alexander. It's hilarious. Okay. And those are the 3. This is Verna. Those are the 3 that are MPIP certified that I know of. There you go. Let's see. Keone says, Corid for coccidiosis. I've used it for my grow outs in my rabbit tractors. I've never had an issue regarding the rabbit's health, but I like the livers, so I do treat periodically with good results. There you go. Teresa says, Zach hasn't been streaming. I've been worried. I wouldn't worry about him too much. I think things are going okay. He's just got a lot going on right now. It was what Verna's saying too. Zach has been busy as he doesn't have the help that he had before and has a sick grandma. So yeah, I was going to say the same things exactly. He's just got a lot going on right now. Too much, just give him some time. I'm sure he'll get back on track. What else? So I don't know how everybody's, we talk, I know you're not supposed to talk about religion or politics in mixed company, but again, I don't really see any reason to hate anybody for differences of opinion. So I share mine all the time, and I just don't see any reason. I mean, if you guys are going to hate me for that, well, you could probably find a more justified reason to hate me if you got to know me, but that's beside the point. So I don't know how everybody's local elections went. We had some amendments here that passed that I did not want to pass. One, they raised the minimum wage again, and it just drives me crazy. I knew it was going to pass. It didn't pass by much, but it did pass. So that means costs of things are going to go up. But, anyway, could be worse. Spider Eva says, what are the factors that determine the size of the eggs in quail? There are times when some eggs are double the size or smaller than normal. I honestly don't know if there's anything that you can do to kind of keep that from happening. I mean, it just happens. It's just part of birds laying eggs. I think genetics probably plays a part in the average size of the egg more than anything. But especially when your birds first start laying, or whenever like if they've stopped laying and they first start laying again, like the end of the season, the beginning of the season, you're going to get a lot more of those. It's just part of when they start laying eggs. I get them too. The bigger, the much larger than normal, those are probably double yolk eggs. Some birds seem to be more prone to laying those than others. But I don't know that there's anything you can do to really impact that, as long as you're feeding them a fairly balanced, whatever you're feeding them is a fairly balanced diet. I don't think there's anything more you can do. Desert Homestead says, what are your thoughts about chicks versus eggs for first timers? I plan on intubating. I think it's probably incubating to raise meat. I don't think you're going to intubate to raise meat, but who knows? But if I mess up my first batch, I have to buy more eggs. Yeah, if you've never incubated before, I mean, it's not terribly hard. I've got videos on how to do it you could follow along with. But if you're never incubated before, if you have the option to buy chicks, that's probably the way that I would go. Because for exactly what you said, you don't want to have invest in eggs, because when you buy eggs, you're usually having to buy about 100. It's not super cheap. And then, if you do something wrong and your whole hatch fails, you're out of that money. You got to buy eggs again. So you might be better off buying chicks if you can, that way you can just incubate your own eggs. And if you fail on those while you're learning, it's not a big loss. But I wouldn't be too scared if you can't find chicks to just order eggs and go ahead and incubate. Just, like I said, watch my video series on it. It's pretty old, but nothing's changed. It's the same process that I've always done. So, and it'll walk you through it. Scrap says Prop 1 passed here in New York. God help us all. I don't know what Prop 1 is, so I can't speak to that. But anyway. Verna says small eggs are from new layers and standard size birds. Jumbo eggs are from jumbo birds. Well, that's not necessarily untrue, but you still, even with jumbo birds, you're still going to get small eggs, giant eggs. Those are just going to happen from time to time. Sometimes you get an egg with no shell. It's just, you just get weird things like that. Steva says chicks have a short learning curve. Indeed, they do. I agree. Dawn says, good evening from South Central Illinois. Good evening to you too. Teresa Wiggins says, I bought chicks and eggs to diversify the genes. There's nothing wrong with that. George wants to know what Prop 1 is. I was kind of curious too. I'm not sure what that is. So yeah, again, we had the minimum wage increase that passed. Let's see. There were two gambling propositions on the ballot. One was for sports, like legalizing sports betting in Missouri, which, it's already legal on pretty much the states all around us. They just wanted to legalize it in Missouri, and that passed. Not too upset about that one. I voted against it because I'm just not a gambler and all that kind of stuff. But, I'm not too upset about that. That could be here nor there. And then we had another one that was wanting to start another casino in the Lake of the Ozarks area, which failed actually. So, and then we had an abortion amendment that went through, and I know that's probably taboo to talk about, but I am a pro-life person, so I was disappointed to see that go through. Anyway. Bill says, Desert Homestead says, intubate was an interesting spell check for incubate, LOL. Yeah, I knew exactly what you meant. I figured it was spell check getting it. Bill says Zach guaranteed a 50% hatch rate. I've seen him replace eggs even when operator error. Well, that's true. You're right. And that is a good thing. Zach is a good supplier. Teresa says, also, I wanted the experience of incubating and watching the eggs hatching. Yeah, that's pretty exciting experience for sure. So yeah, nothing wrong with that. Like I said, I wouldn't really worry about it too much if that's what you can get is eggs and you want to, try your hand at incubating, even if it is the first time. You're going to get, you're probably going to have a pretty decent hatch rate as long as you go with a reputable supplier. And I wouldn't just order from just anybody off eBay or anything. All right, what else we got here? All of a sudden the chat died, probably because I was talking politics, right? Scared everybody off. Like I said, I don't ever care about sharing my opinion because I don't hate other people when they share theirs. So I just assume that everybody's okay with hearing mine. Not always the case, I guess, but I take that risk. Did I say the wrong words and YouTube just shut me off for some reason? Because it is dead. Probably shouldn't have said that either, huh? There we go. Abbott's Guns and Hobby says, have you had any experience with the white wing jumbos from my shire? No, I haven't had any from, not those specifically. I don't have any experience with those, period. I pretty much stick with just jumbo farrow. That's the ones that I like. To me, they're the best option when it comes to just meat and egg production. Teresa says, strange thing is, I didn't order my first eggs. I drove 1.5 hours each way to get them, and them to find out on day 10 when I candled that at least a third were cracked. Oh no. Scrap 5000 says, Chris, YouTube is hiding my replies to you. Oh no. Do you have some questionable words in them or something? You can't tell us what it is. You may have to use code words or, use, I don't know. Tony says, hello from Virginia. I have a 12-week-old hen that had a foot injury. It seemed to heal after I treated it, but she stopped walking much and hasn't laid an egg in a week. 12-week-old hen that had a foot injury. So sounds like you got it healed up. You said she stopped walking much. So, is it healed? What kind of foot injury are we talking about? I really don't know exactly. If that's the case, though, if, when you say both of those things combined, it makes me sound like she may be a little stressed out. Maybe she's still working on healing. Give her a little bit of time, see how she does. Who knows? Teresa says, I candled my shipped eggs as soon as they arrive, and only 2 were broken. Well, good. That's not bad. Lyndon says, picking up 4 dozen eggs Sunday. Well, awesome. Hopefully you have a good hatch. Scrap 5000 says, prop 1 is for those who think they are a different identity than they were born as. Oh, okay. Gotcha. I don't know the details of it. Kind of the way I feel about that is that, you can do whatever you want to do. Just leave me out of it. It's okay. But when they start shoving it down my throats or starting to, you know what I'm talking about. That's when I stand up. I'm like, look, I don't have to believe your delusions. It's okay. If you want to pretend whatever you want to do, you do it in your own time, but don't get mad at me because I don't buy into it. Steve says free speech. Yep, I agree. Kay Cameron says Team Trump. Lindy says, can jumbos go with the celadons? Yeah, you can mix them up, but what you're going to end up happening is you'll end up losing that celadon gene. So, because what they'll do is they'll be interbreeding, and if you breed a celadon with a non-celadon, well then, you're not going to get a celadon offspring. So, you might get, probably not anyway. George says, I can see them, Scrap. Change your live stream settings to live chat. Talk chat is default setting. Really? I haven't seen any of them, so I don't have any settings. I don't think so. Oh, you know what? There we go. We'll change it to all chat. That was a good tip. I didn't even realize. Maybe that was it. Let's see. George says, you got to be over 45 to not be a snowflake these days. I see you're here in Australia and can't talk about anything that is left, right, or pro con. Yeah, I don't know. I have issues with the censorship too. Let's see. Spider Reva says, I got 6 jumbos and 6 Texas. Beginner's mistake 14 months ago. So Texas, meaning like Texas A&M, white birds. They're probably not at Texas A&M, but people still call them that. Although David Lister says that to Abbott's Guns and Hobbies that he's been raising jumbo white wings from my shire for about 30 months. And then let's see. Desert Homestead says, do the different quail breeds taste different or just size, feathers, and temperature? They're all the same. It's just the difference in size and feather, color, and that kind of stuff. And I said temperature. You said temperament. That's, yeah. Those are the differences. That's it. They taste exactly the same. Tony says, her foot was cut and looked like bumblefoot. The black sore on her foot is gone. Well, good. Hopefully that's all it was. It wasn't like a broken leg or something like that. Like I said, give her a little bit of time, see how she does. Hopefully it's just still, trying to heal up completely. Keone says, a fertilized chicken egg changed me to pro-life about 40 years ago when I unknowingly cracked the egg open for breakfast and a very developed chick lived for about 5 minutes in my hand. A God moment. Yeah, indeed. I don't know that, what changed me was just God working on my heart. That changed me. I used to be more of and I'm saying I was always kind of a pro-life. I never agreed with it from the standpoint of like birth control purposes, but I did used to be more lenient towards, like, in the case, well, you know what I'm talking about. The ones that everybody brings up, the 1% cases of, SA and, I can't say those words or we'll probably get banned. I changed my views on those kinds of things. But Verna says, glad you said it, Chris. I kept my fingers silent on that, LOL. I don't know what we're talking about exactly, but like I said, I don't care. I share my opinions because, I just don't think anybody should hate anybody for their opinion. Abbott wants to know, to David, how are they on temperament-wise? Calm like the jumbo pharaohs or much more like all the white birds? That's a good question. Spider Reva says, you can talk about politics if you want, Chris. This is your channel. Let's go Trump Vance 2428. Yeah, I just don't want anybody to think that if they have a different view, they can't share it, because they can certainly share it. I'm going to be okay. I'll be open to hear it. I'm going to listen to it. And again, I'm not going to hate you if you have a different view than mine. It's perfectly all right as long as you agree to that and you can be okay with my opinion. George Kaiser says, I put new baby birds in my coops. That could explain the drop in egg laying too. Chris mentioned it before. Sometimes, yeah, I do see sometimes whenever I add babies, I usually add young, like 2-week, 3-week-old birds in with my adult birds if I'm planning on, like making them part of the flock as they grow. And I've had great success doing that. Very little aggression, if any, at all from the adult birds. They don't see them as like competition and don't start picking on them. So that works out really well. Sometimes I will see a slight drop in egg production whenever I do that, but usually not too much. And then it picks right back up. But yeah, Verna's saying the same thing. They don't like change. Yeah, change is bad for them, huh? Steve says, but it's not birth control. It's, in quotes, healthcare. Yeah, that drives me nuts too. Uh-oh, Verna's leaving. He's got a headache. Well, Verna, I hope you get to feeling better. Yeah, I get sick of that healthcare ad. That just drives me nuts. Just the amount of, lies, flat out lies that come out about that is just crazy. If you're going to push for it, just call it what it is. But that's just my opinion. Spider Reva says, white birds are really aggressive. Yep. George says, there's some truth to Chris's previous comments. My English whites literally kill each other if I don't catch it in time. Absolutely. Well, see, David says, to Abbott's Guns and Hobbies, I have seen no temperament problems with them. You will see an occasional jumbo white from them, which I call. I am just too lazy to vent check. Yeah, I don't blame you. Joe Sandy says, not very healthy for the baby. No, I agree. Absolutely. George says, what, you don't believe I can identify as a woman? I believe you can. Yeah, you can do that if you want to, but you don't can't expect me to believe that. Can't expect me. When you get mad at me because I don't buy into that, then, that's your issue. But you can absolutely do that. Do that if you want to. Kiona says, Chris, you have ducks can you have ducks if you don't have water, i.e. pond, creek, etc.? Yeah, you absolutely can. Ducks don't have to have water to swim in or anything like that. They'll do just fine without it. You do need to give them water to drink, of course, and they need to really have enough water they can get their head in, like a bucket or something like that. If they can get their head in there, because when they eat, they tend to want to shake their beaks in water and stuff like that. So you need that, but you don't have to have like a pond or anything for them to swim in. They'll do just fine. George says, haha. Yeah. I don't know if anybody watches or listens to Joe Rogan. I don't listen to him regularly, and there is a lot of like foul language on there. So if that offends you, then I can look past it. I'm okay with it. But he had a really good, just a couple of days ago, the day before the election, really good interview with Elon Musk. It was a really interesting one. Bob says, hey, Chris, I bagged a deer last week, bow hunting with a couple of pheasants too. Do you plan on doing any deer or turkey hunting this year? Yeah, deer hunting for sure. Turkey will be spring. We do have a fall turkey season, but I don't usually hunt them in the fall. I hunt them in the spring. We don't have a ton of turkeys, so I don't do a lot of turkey hunting. Well, I do hunting, but I don't do a lot of turkey killing. Let's put it that way. I went out last Saturday for the first time because it's been so hot here. I don't want to get eaten up by ticks going deer hunting, and we can't spray a bunch of bug screen on you or bug repellent on you, and it's going to scare the deer away. But did have one buck come in. I was sitting in a blind, kind of facing forward. He came in from the side, and he was just on the verge of being big enough. If it had been the last day of the season, I'd have shot him without thinking twice. But first day, first time out, I thought, I'm just going to let him go ahead and go. But he came, he almost walked into the blind. I thought he was going to. He came within 15 yards of the blind and was looking right at me. I was in the blind. It's one of those see-through blinds. I had the window closed, so he couldn't see me. He probably could smell me. But he walked around like he was going to walk behind me, and then he turned and walked right about in front of me and kind of hung out there for a little while, and then he went off into the woods. It was cool to see. He was an interesting deer. I've never seen one like this. Had a lot of white on his face, a whole lot, like eyebrows, basically, of white eyebrows and white down his cheeks. And I've never seen one quite like that. But yeah, I did not get a deer, so but it was only one time out. I'm going to try to get out this weekend at some point if it's not raining all weekend. Dawn says, my friend uses a kid's swimming pool for her ducks. Teresa says, same thing. You can get them a kiddie pool. Yeah, you're just going to have to change the water out a lot because they will mess it up. It will be filthy. Abbott's Guns and Hobbies says, I identify as a male in my early 20s. Unfortunately, my body doesn't agree. Snap, crackle, pop isn't just a cereal at 53, LOL. Yeah, I know what you mean. Did I miss something? Oh, okay, never mind. I got it. George is saying, that sounds awesome, Bob. Wish I could do that here. Yeah, congratulations on your deer, by the way. Dawn says, another friend kept her ducks in the house when little. She used a half whiskey barrel of water with a ramp. It was cute. Yeah, I can imagine. Homestead, I just watched Elon's JRE today. He's an amazing human. Thank God for him saving free speech. Indeed. And just remember, though, free speech plays both ways. We got to, I absolutely agree. We need free speech. But you're going to have to listen to all the other people out there you don't agree with talking to you. And they have every right to do that, just as much as we have right to say what we want to say. David says, Chris, how are those new kits doing? We have 2 does due mid part of next week. Well, good luck. Hopefully you have a good kindling with them. The new kits seem to be doing fine. I haven't really checked on them in the last day or two. I'm just no more than just kind of glancing in the nest, seeing that there's movement in there, but they're doing fine. Joe Sandy says, I loved Trump on Rogan, but I do not like the Rogan interview with Vance. He seemed like a totally different person than he seemed on his VP debate, which I really like, just my opinion. I haven't actually watched the one with Vance. I watched part of the one with Trump, and it seemed to be pretty good. But yeah, I haven't watched the one with Vance. His debate was great. I agree. I mean, I thought that was one of the best debates I've seen, best presidential debates I've seen in a long time. Just very respectful. And I mean, I thought it went really, really well. Jacob says, if you have never heard of Sean Ryan, you should really check out his interview with President Trump. And he did offer to have Kamala on, but her team couldn't agree to terms. Yeah, that's kind of the same thing with Rogan too. I mean, they tried to work something out and never could agree to terms. Joe Sandy says, that's one thing I like about Trump. He is consistent. Take it or leave it. I agree. Steve says, do you hunt for meat or for sport? For meat. I do hunt for meat. I mean, it is fun. I enjoy it. But I do hunt for meat, and I do hold out to try to get older, mature bucks. For multiple reasons. One, I mean, there's something to be said about, hey, I got an old mature buck. I mean, that's hard to do. And if you get one, it's, you get a little bit of bragging rights. So there's a little bit of that goes into it. But at the same time, I believe that's a conservation type thing. I let the young ones grow as much as I can, try to take out the older ones that are, been there for a while and already had a chance to kind of spread their seed, so to speak. Anyway, so yeah, I do hunt for meat though. I only take what I'm going to eat. I don't, shoot more than that. I usually only take one deer a year, and we eat it all. Homestead Matters says, everyone can have an opinion. They just can't expect me to agree with theirs. I agree. George Kaiser says he's even consistent from the 80s. He says to Joe Sandy, his old interviews, he says the same thing. Yeah, he pretty much does. Teresa says, I hope I'm never forced to hunt to eat. I'd probably starve. Yeah, I get it. It's not for everybody. George says, do you eat your quail, Teresa? I guess killing them is a form of hunting. It's very similar. It's actually harder. To me, it's harder to dispatch an animal right there up close and personal than it is to, shoot one at 20 yards or 30 yards or 50 yards or whatever. Scrap 5000 says it's mind-boggling that people who let in millions of illegal aliens and put feminine cycle products in boys' bathrooms didn't get elected. Yeah. And Teresa says, no, just for eggs. So, okay. Nothing wrong with that. That's all good. And then you sell the chicks. Yeah, that's all good. I get it. It's not everybody can do that. And it may be something that you kind of evolve to at some point, that you develop the ability to do that, but there's no reason you have to. It's okay if you don't. You guys notice I'm scratching my arms a lot. I got into bundling up the brush. It's pretty much healed up now, but I got into some poison ivy, which I don't usually have issues with, but I did not come in and scrub down right after. I didn't used to be allergic to it at all, and now I just get it from time to time. So that's what I've been doing, is scratching that. Apparently, it hasn't been that bad. Joe Sandy says, when my boys were little and we brought them their first BB gun, we told them that they could shoot animals, but they would clean them and eat them. They never did shoot birds or frogs or anything. Hey, there's Andy Rabbit. Says, I forgot tonight was Thursday. Well, you made it barely in time. We got 2 minutes left. Teresa says, I might trade adult quail with a friend who had meat chickens. She can process the quail and give me an already processed chicken. Well, that works out. There's no reason you shouldn't do that. George says, if you want to be really provocative, the Dems got 15 million less votes this time around. Where did they go? I would contend they never existed in the first place. In 2020, Biden got 81 million votes, LOL. Yeah, I mean, let it go. I mean, that's way past. We are where we are now. It doesn't do us any good to do that. But I know what you're saying, though. Abbott's Gun says, LOL, Joe Sandy, Dad had the same rule with me. Ate a lot of dove, squirrel, and rabbit. I did too. We hunted, not dove so much, but we hunted squirrel and rabbit when I was a kid. I mean, all the time. Scrap says, Chris, do you celebrate Halloween? I've been starting to think it's sacrilegious, but I can't resist taking the kids' candy. LOL. No, we do celebrate it, not in the sense of, I mean, I don't have like big, huge Halloween displays or anything like that, but we hand out candy to the trick or treaters. We, you know, I don't think there's any issue with that. I think it depends on how you really, you know, what you put into that. I mean, if you really, you know, if you look, you can change anything into an idol. Let's put it that way. So it really kind of depends on where your heart is with that and all those kinds of things. I don't think there's any issue with celebrating a secular holiday like that. And, you know, for what it is, handing out candy to kids and those kinds of things. It's kind of fun. It's a good time. I don't see any issue with it. Bob says, I even save the deer heart and the liver to make treats for my dog. I do the same with the pheasant, liver, heart, and gizzard. Yep. Keone says, Technu mineral spirits for poison ivy before rash sets in. Collagen is Collagel is great to reduce the itch, mitigate the spread, and speed up the healing. Yeah, I just deal with it. It's really not that bad. I mean, I was a little itchy right now, so I was scratching, but that's it. It's really not been that bad. It's about gone now. I had the worst of it was right there. You can't even really see it, I don't think, if I turn towards the light. Just a little red now. It's not even there really anymore. That was the worst of it. It wasn't that big of a deal, but yeah, I appreciate the advice. All right, it is 8 o'clock. It looks like it's time to wrap this one up. So great hanging out with you guys. Let's see, we got one more comment here I can talk to. Teresa says, I don't celebrate Halloween anymore. Our church does trunk or treat and discourages monsters, witch, and demon costumes. So yeah, well, I did actually go to my cousin's Halloween party. We dressed up. I was Coach Andy Reid. That's why you may have noticed the end of last week's video or Monday's video. I only had a mustache, didn't have the goatee, and it's growing back. It's kind of short right now because I had to shave off my goatee to be Andy Reid. So anyway, but again, I don't see any issues with that. I mean, I know what you're saying, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do that kind of thing, but I don't see any issues with Halloween as long as as long as your heart's in the right place and you know what you're doing. So, oh, it is Veterans Day, is it? Isn't that like the 11th or something? I guess it's a couple days away, but anyway. All right, I'm going to wrap this one up, guys. Good to see you guys. Hopefully, I'll be back next week. I don't see any reason why I won't. And we'll see you guys then. So until then, God bless.